One of the key factors in deployments is creating templates for your users. You'll actually be working in its partnership with your super users in creating templates that are customized for your organization. They can be created by your central group as for maybe departments or items that are specific and fairly static, or they may be bubbling up from your users as they customize things, maybe a specific project plan or a specific type that they can actually customize themselves and then ask for central administration help in rolling out into the organization. These templates can be either simple configurations or can contain content. You can actually have situations where a template will be simply changing a theme or a look and feel, or it could be as complex as, say, a project site that comes in and already has pre-populated checklists that may actually have integration into back-end systems, whereas staffing may be populated automatically. There's a lot of range with what you can do with templates. Templates submitted from groups should be reviewed. SharePoint is very, very good about making sure that there's no malicious code that can be run on the servers themselves. That being said, there is capability of putting in client executable code, or there are things that can actually happen behind the scenes with connected web parts that data can be passed around. If you're getting data from outside of your organization, or if you're actually working with users that may not have the full training that your management team has, definitely go through those submitted templates. Install them, work through them, check and make sure that everything's right before you roll them out to the entire organization. So you have templates. How do you actually work with them? Your organization site collection templates can be found under custom when you're creating this. We're going to look at this in a demo in just a bit, but you actually have the built-in templates that you can modify and actually remove, or you can actually just have your organizational templates separately registered inside of SharePoint. When creating a new template, the closer you can get to what you already have, the better. So if you're starting with a project template, starting with the out-of-the-box template is a good place to start on that. That being said, there's no reason why you have to start with anything new. You can go with a clean slate, pull those in, and customize to your heart's content. It just helps there, knowing what's going on, giving you ideas on things that might be useful. One thing to note that the blank site template is no longer installed by default. So if you're looking for that, this was a template that was used earlier on in SharePoint, so you could actually come in with a clean slate and start building up that template for exactly what you're looking for. It may be useful for your organization to create a blank template by removing items from a default one. Just go through and remove the site content, remove the web parts, just clean it all out so that you've got a nice blank slate for users to come in and put it into place. Please document this so they may install it and kind of go, what's going on here? It's useful to have them know what to expect there, but it's a good place to kind of go in and do your own thing without influence of built-in templates. When you're going through and putting in security, you need to think of a couple of things. When creating templates, try to avoid setting custom security. This is one of those pieces where you don't want to put users in specifically, because as you deploy these templates, they may go into locations where specific users may not be available and may not have access to it. So you don't want to put that challenge in there. Remember that you don't need to really put a administrative account on the template, because that's going to be handled inside of the SharePoint site collection, or actually inside the web application levels. So you can actually roll that in. You don't need to put a lot of custom security in there. If you do need to put some specific security in there, set the SharePoint groups to unique names and don't assign the accounts. Set up some information for the deployer to know that here is what those groups are for. Maybe you have different areas in it, or different lists that have different permissions depending upon the groups. You may have different roles for the template. So be aware of that. Make sure that it's very descriptive. People rolling out these templates may not have a lot of information about it. They may need the self-documentation. So make sure that you go through there and do that. And remember that on creation, The default behavior for these templates is going to be to inherit security unless they're at the top of a site collection. So if they're being used to create as a subsite, the security accounts generally aren't going to actually be there because they're going to be inheriting from the top level. And so when you're creating your templates, don't assume that you're going to have very specific information about how this is going to work. You need to pay attention to what's happening with your template and try and make it fit into the standard SharePoint groups that you see. This is going to make things a lot easier for people to roll out your template. It's also going to make it a lot simpler to manage those once they're in place. And if you do have those specific security needs, one good way of creating that documentation is a text web part on the site template front page. You'll see when you deploy some of the existing templates in SharePoint, there's some instructions that you'll see right on the front page that says remove this or do these things or get started. Take that cue. It's very easy to put a text web part into your template, and that can give you all the documentation that you need there. Another item that this does is it does tell the users if the person deploying has actually gone through and set things up. You want things as quick and easy to do. Basically, the ideal template will just be deployed and everything's already in there. I mentioned with some of the integration pieces, you could actually have the site populate itself with data from external systems. But if that's not acceptable, or if that's not something you have resources to do, when users come in and see that there are still configuration steps to be done on the front page, they know they've had their expectations set on what level the system's going to be at that point. SharePoint handles a lot of navigation for you, but there's some things to look at. The SharePoint navigation controls by default show lists and subsites if each one of those is set to show. The administrator or the template can actually set different items not to show back up on those navigation controls, but they're set by default to show up in the navigation itself. So when you go through, you can actually see what libraries or lists you have, what subsites are underneath this site, and it makes it very easy to move back and forth in the system. Your breadcrumb across the top will actually tell your users generally how deep they are so they can move back in, and there are ways to actually connect the SharePoint templates back into a portal. So there's always kind of a come back to the home page functionality in there for you. You can actually add additional links on the top or nav bars if you have the correct permission. The top bar is kind of common to all of the current templates. You can actually go through and you can see kind of here's the item, here's all the different pieces that you need to see to make use of the site itself. On the sidebar, the quick launch bar, that's where you're actually going to see the lists and subsites and all the rest of those. So you can actually put in additional content that looks very similar to how users are working with content on the site, but point them to your custom places. Maybe it be a custom form, maybe a custom application that you've got, whatever you need. It's very quick and easy to put those in place. And be very thoughtful with your links. You want to think about whether you want them absolute or relative links. This is because when that template is deployed, it can be deployed at any level. So it could be a top level on a site collection. It could be 4 levels deep as a subsite. It could be a site collection under a site collection. So you want to make sure that if you're doing relative links, that it works in all situations, and that can be fairly complex. But if you're doing absolute links, remember that you may not be on the same server, you may not be on the same farm that you originally thought you were working with the template. So be aware of that. Think about how those are going to go into place, and ideally your links are going to kind of stay within your site boundaries. But if you do need to go out, and make sure that you've thought through what that actually means. So you have your templates. How does this affect your self-service site management, which is kind of our end goal, to allow the users to take as much control of their information as possible? Make sure that you're thinking about what happens when those templates are deployed by someone outside of your organization, outside of the administrators group. How are they going to know what that template is supposed to be for? How are they going to know that it's appropriate? How are they going to discover? You're going to be giving a lot of documentation to them about a quick summary about what the template is for. but how are they going to understand all the processes and workflows and everything in there? Be thinking about how you can create that information, get that training out so that the users know what those templates are actually going to do and use them to their full capabilities. Part of the process is making sure you have that documentation. Help is a great place to put in there, online help of going, if I want to do or certain things like that. You may even have a discussion area or a wiki on your portal to give information for users that are looking deeper into doing different processes. The more you can actually tie that to tasks that they're doing inside their job, the more acceptable it's going to be and the more accessible it's going to be to your users. So think about that. Additionally, think about how many particular types. It's very tempting to kind of create a one-size-fits-all template for your users to be able to go, hey, you go in here and then you just tweak it a little bit for how you do it. But the better you can actually tie the templates into the process groups, the better off your usage is going to be. This is where working with your individual process groups that you have in your organization, they can surface a lot of this information. They can actually give you very detailed feedback on what they're doing with their projects, and this actually gives you insight into how they're using your SharePoint implementation, which can actually tie back into usage reports and hardware predictions about what you need. So keeping that communications open helps both your team and their team, and make sure users are happier with your implementation. Again, you can put additional documentation once the template is deployed on the site front page as a text web part. This is the ability to have some information up front and center for the users. That being said, this happens after the template is actually deployed. So you do want some information beforehand. This is great for now the user's made this choice. This is kind of your last chance of going, maybe this isn't what you're looking for, or let's make sure you know what you're putting together. Because once your users start putting their information into that template or that template instantiation, you're kind of committed to it at that point. Bring the information back out and migrating it to a different template generally doesn't happen. So what you'll end up doing is you'll have them, even if they choose the wrong template to begin with, modifying that one as they go forward rather than trying to match it up with the correct template in your organization. So we've been talking about customization. We need to look at SharePoint Designer just a moment. SharePoint Designer is a hugely powerful tool for configuring templates. You get access to lots of deep information. You've got this is the tool that lets you actually change out master pages and style sheets and put custom versions of all of the different SharePoint system files in there. You can actually go through and change out your detailed forms and your add item and edit item screens and all of those kind of things. So very powerful tool for SharePoint designed specifically to work with it. Generally, you only want trained web or graphics designers working with this. The reason why is that because SharePoint has such power, or SharePoint Designer has such power, is that you can get very deep into the roots of SharePoint. This means you can, if you're not careful or if you're not used to working with SharePoint, you can break a site pretty badly as you go through there. You can actually make it so that the site cannot be entered into through the web interface. So know that if you've got people who are very interested in working with SharePoint Designer and want that level of control, make sure they're trained, make sure they understand what they're doing with the web design and with SharePoint itself to ensure you don't get those calls of my site won't work, and you start asking, so what did you do with it? Oh, didn't do anything, and you go find that they've got 14 different master page types and everything's moving differently. That additional special training should be not just on the web and the graphics designs, but about how all that fits into SharePoint. SharePoint actually does do check-in, check-outs on various versions of its system files. So it's a situation where even if they're used to working with web pages or they're used to working with graphics, they'll need to understand how all that fits into SharePoint, where those repositories are for them to be able to put custom style sheets or to be able to put their custom pages in. This is going to take a little bit of time for them, so probably very soon should take a look at people that may you may choose to build up this skill set with. Generally, 1 or 2 people with this skill set are sufficient for an organization unless you have a lot of designing going on. It's a very efficient and effective tool, so one person can generally get a lot done with SharePoint Designer. And when problems occur, I've got written if, but when problems occur with SharePoint Designer updates, your site can be returned to the original template at. You can go through the whole site URL itself. This is very nice to do. That being said, only jump on this if you've got a situation where you really can't get to it. If you can still get to the website with SharePoint Designer, if you can still kind of roll things back, try and do your point solutions first, because this does reset the site all the way back to the original template. So any other changes that you've made are gone as well. This kind of gets you back to a known good state. But if someone's been working on the site for a while doing updates, this can kind of put them back to ground zero. And then there's automatic site deletion. It's good practice to configure sites with user confirmation auto deletion when targeting for self-service creation. If you're creating these templates so that users can go out and manage their own sites, can put it into place, the automatic site confirmation and deletion is very, very useful. You'll find that with your centrally managed, if your team's working on it, you're going to have some very good documentation. You're going to have your processes in place. This is really kind of your job to make sure that SharePoint's running happy and healthy. If you're pushing it out to your users, they're keeping SharePoint clean and managed is less part of their job than their real job. So rolling those sites out, you'll find that you actually do start gathering up a lot of sites that kind of, maybe they're test sites, or maybe how do I work with this sites, or those kind of things. So making sure that you've got the confirmation and deletion set in there can help you prevent finding yourself in a situation where you have terabytes of data that nobody really knows why it's there, what it's supposed to do. The usage settings are managed at the web application level, so you have to consider your structure, how you're putting it into place. It's not as simple as just saying everything has these site confirmation and deletion checks. If you've got a situation where you're putting things in for your departments that they're going to be static pages and you know they should never be removed, you want to have those in a different web application than you have your general project sites that come and go and you know they're going to be fairly transient, or you have kind of your work team projects that will come together, will be productive for a while, and then will move away. So take a look at how those are going to fit together. Use your site collections to be able to put those in place. Know that you can actually put those site collections under site collections. So you may want to have your top level be your portal and your sites that will live on, and have all of those rolled up under. This is the traditional SharePoint 2007 portal model. You can work with this or not, that you get the flexibility in SharePoint 2013. But by doing that, and then maybe creating those site collections underneath that, a site's site collection underneath, so they can see the different user sites, a project site collection that now all the projects go under there. All of those kind of come into place to let you manage exactly the right settings for exactly the right group of sites as you move forward through here. Now we're going to go through and do a quick demo of the site templates and how we're going to put all these together. So here we have the built-in template that SharePoint has, the projects template. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new instance of this project and then go through and do some customizations and save it as our template. Then we're going to deploy it out and let you see how your users can roll out those custom templates. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to create a subsite with our template so we can get started. Come down, create our new subsite, and we're going to make sure that we mark it for what we're working with. So this will be so you can see we actually have some descriptions in here. We'll actually be able to modify this on the template itself, but for now, let's make sure that people know what we're doing. and we'll do a project A location. We come down and you see we've got, right now we've got our collaboration and enterprise templates that we can install. We're going to go with the project site. We're not going to use unique permissions. We're going to try and work with our permissions on the parent site. If you need to at a later point, then you can break the inheritance and work with that on your site. But let's try and keep it the same. We'll display it. Remember I said that the sites can be displayed on the navigation or not, and the top link bar. And we won't use the top link bar because we're going to be actually working with our own. So we'll create this new instance and then start customizing it. So now we have our company project site. You can see we've got our information here. As we first talked about this, we can actually set our links as we want. First, we're going to put a link up on the top and add a link. We're going to put a link to our project processes. You notice we can put in whatever we like, but we can actually try the link itself to make sure it works. This is just a demo link, so I'm not going to go through there and have it error out. We're going to put that in there, and now we've actually got an additional link to some documentation we may need here. We've got to save that, and we are in good shape. You can see that we actually have some documentation here. Project summary says go in and edit the task list. This is some of the documentation that we want to put into place. Some additional, this is a nice little documentation control that the template puts into place that says here are some of your tasks that you can go through and put into your site to make it useful. There's a nice little link here that says remove this. So once you've got it done, you can pull it out. You can actually add those back in from the settings. So this is a custom place to help you get started. You can edit that as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some customizations first for the site itself and then for the content. So we're going to come in and we're going to change the information just a little bit for our template. We can actually put in our logos here, our description. And you'll need to go with your branding people to ensure that. This is alternative for the text, for the picture. And then we'll go through and we'll change the look a bit so we know that we're on the right location. And we don't want to be too different, but let's go ahead and go with a green theme. These themes can all be done by your SharePoint Designer people to be put in custom looks and feels. You can go in and try it out. And you can see we've got a new look and feel on our site. If we wanted to, we can go back and say we like the Oslo site layout. You can see we've got different ways to put that in there. We're getting some live feedback on what we're doing. And we've got our color complete. Actually drop the image in here. Let's go ahead and try it out. And we're going to keep this. And you can see our site is now updated for the look and feel. Now our next piece we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of content in. We're going to go to the tasks. And we're going to add a couple of tasks. So we have our task of and we're going to just have the task itself without a start date, due date, or assigned to. add 2 more tasks. And you notice that as we're putting these in, we could be attaching files as well. If we have process documents or we have anything there, we can actually be assigning those to these tasks on the site. We can actually put some additional information here and we can tie them in. We can do all the typical things we normally do for a project. But let's come in and drop those in. So now we've got a little bit of content that we're going to have on our site as well. So we've got some customization of the template and how it looks. We've also got some tasks that are going to be associated with this project as well. So now we've kind of got our very minimal customization for our project site. Let's go and create a template out of it. So we will save the site as a template. And our name will be so we can let them know just a quick description there. We're going to include content. This will bring in our tasks, so those will be already ready. And you can see we've actually now successfully made a template out of the site. What we'll do is we'll go and take a look at the solutions gallery. And you can see we have our information here. You notice we're back up at our site collection level, which is where the site templates are. So we've got project A template, which we can deactivate. It comes in, it's automatically activated. We've saved the site as a template. It's gone into the gallery. It's active. It's ready for usage. We could deactivate it. We could upload one solution from another location, which we're going to do in just a moment. And you can actually see that templates can take up server resources. So we actually can see how much is being used today and see how much resource usage is being done by this site template. And then we can actually change the name of it if we want to. If we've got something different that we'd like to show it. But right now we're not going to make any changes there. Now we're going to go back to our root site. And we're going to create another subsite. And you see that now we have our custom option, and it's our project A template. So we're going to do a so we can go through, create our template. We're going to again have the same permissions. Show it on the quick launch, and we're going to go create an instance of this template. You can see as we start creating it, we've got our new look and feel just off of our template. We've got all of our information here, and let's go take a look at our tasks. You can see that just like we have on our first project site, we actually have our tasks that have been included. They're ready to be assigned and ready to go, but we've already got a piece of information. We've got a link to our project processes, and if we had wanted to, we could put additional documentation in. We could put calendar sites in. You can actually, when you're doing templates, you can actually do things such as today plus 5. If you wanted a calendar item that was from the template creation and then 5 days after that. So you have some ability to do some scripted pieces from the moment the template is created and on beyond that. So there we have our site and our template. So now that we've got we're creating these templates under site collections, how do we move them around? What we're going to do is we're going to pop back up to our site collection root, move back into our other look and feel. And now we're going to go take a look at that collection again. You can find the site collections under solutions. What we're going to do is we're going to click on it, and it's going to ask us to save the WSP. Now the WSP is, so you know, it's a web solutions package. So we save that and put in our folder. So we've got our, you can see it's here. So we'll go to one of our other site collections. This is our site collection on port 80. That's default from SharePoint 2013 install. We'll come in, we'll work on the site settings. We'll go to the solutions. And you can see this is our separate solutions gallery that does not have any content in it, does not have any custom templates. So we're going to upload our WSP. Browse and get our Project A template. Note that you have an option to overwrite files. If you have a WSP of that name already in place and you try and overwrite it, it will succeed unless the WSP is still active. As you notice when you upload, we have to activate it ourselves, but if it's already active, it'll let you know that you do need to deactivate that solution before you do an override of the file itself. Here we didn't have that problem, so we're just going to go in and activate the solution. And now we've uploaded our Project A template, and we now have it activated. So now we're going to go in and confirm that that's visible in the site collection. Come down to our new subsite, and you'll see that we've got our Project A template in the custom folder. So we now have moved our template over into our new SharePoint site collection, and we're good to go. So when you go through and work with your templates, this is how you can bring them in. Bring those collections into your site collections so they're isolated and you can test them. You want to go through and do your evaluations of them. We've gone through the process of doing this with a site template. Just for your information, you can actually go through and do the same process with your lists themselves. So just like you've got a site template, you can actually work with your lists and have custom list templates. This is a way to actually go in and do things a little bit more granular. If you don't need a full project site, but maybe you have a Scrum project management list or some types there, you can actually do the same processes but with your other contents. In just a moment, we'll show you that you can actually take those same customizations there. We go to the list and the list settings. And here we can save even our list as templates. And when we go through that, we'll do the same processes that we did with the site templates. It's just going to be focused on just what's contained in this list or this document library.